Hello everyone, wishing you a very good day. This is Dr. Neha Khodke and welcome to yet another session of Zomeo Classroom. Today we are going to study a very interesting remedy. A remedy that we usually do not think of as a constitutional. A remedy that we may not even think of even for physical complaints unless and until they are very, very peculiar to the remedy. But let me tell you, this medicine is an amazing constitutional medicine if the mental symptoms match. The remedy is Ambra Grisea. Let's start. So, Ambra Grisea is a nosode or a morbid product that is found in the belly of the sperm whale. Now let us get down to the core of what Ambra is. To know what the core is, let us read very carefully what is given about Ambra. So, it's a nosode. It's a morbid secretion. Now, morbid is something that is not good, could be disgusting, could be repulsive. Now, how do we know that this is a morbid secretion? Because this word morbid plays a very important role for us to understand what is the core of Ambra. This one word morbid can help you remember Ambra in a very easy way and can help you identify Ambra as a remedy in many of your patients. So let us see what is given about Ambra Grisea in the various source books that we have. Let's go to hompathsomeo. Now to access information about Ambra Grisea, that is about a particular remedy, there is a very easy way in which you can access all the books and all the notes that are given on any remedy from hompathsomeo right in one place. Now to do that, go to the module of remedy in the topmost menu bar. Click on it and you see the first option called remedy list. You can also press Command E from the keyboard. Now clicking on the remedy list opens up the entire list of remedies that are represented in Zomeo. There are more than 3,400 remedies currently housing in hompathsomeo. We are particularly looking for information on Ambra Grisea. So, in the search bar, let us type Ambra. So, we type AMBR. Alright, the moment I type this, my remedy list drills down to only those remedies that contain these three words. So, let us see what is given under Ambra Grisea. Now, if I want to read about this remedy from any book, okay, what I will do is click on the arrow given next to the word properties in the blue taskbar. Now I go to the option of reference book. Once I do this, the first reference book that contains information about the remedy opens. Now let me show you a few reference books and what they say about this remedy. Let us start with the first reference book. Now to access any reference book, all you need to do is click on the arrow present next to the word books. And now I scroll down the list and for example, let me take up the book The Dictionary of Practical Materia Medica by John Clark. When I open it, the first thing that I see is where this remedy is sourced. So read the first line. Ambra Grisea, most probably a morbid secretion found in the sperm whale or floating in the sea. Okay, remember this line, most probably a morbid product. Let's see what is given about Ambra in another book. Say, let us take up the book on Materia Medica by Boric. Here, the first line itself says, a morbid secretion of the whale. This word morbid is very important when it comes to us trying to understand the remedy Ambra Grisea. Let's look at another book, a book that specializes in information on nosodes. Let us look at the Materia Medica of Nosodes by H.C. Allen. Ambra Grisea, of doubtful origin, for years on the borderland as to its true classification, but probably a nosode or morbid products found in the belly of the sperm whale. So what I am trying to tell you is that this word morbidity runs through the entire remedy of Ambra. Now generally when we think of any nosodes, let me give you a small pointer towards how we can understand nosodes. Now if you see in nosodes there is a lot of extremeness in the remedy, and that extremeness concentrates upon a singular feeling. This runs through the entire remedy and affects the patient both emotionally, intellectually, as well as physically. That one emotion that is there or present at such an extreme level that it affects the entire constitution of the patient. For example, if you look at the nosode of Sorinum, the core of Sorinum is an extreme form of sadness, and the sadness is so intense that it goes to the level of melancholy, it goes to the level of depression. On the other hand, if you look at the remedy Medorinum, okay, again another nosode, the extremeness of the symptom of anger that you will see in Medorinum is seldom seen in any other homeopathic remedy. And this anger runs through the core of the entire remedy, so much so that it can start affecting the patient physically as well. Let's look at another nosode, Thuja. In Thuja, there is an extreme sense of fear, especially for the self. And this level of fear, this intensity of fear is seldom seen in other remedies. So if you see, what I am trying to tell you friends is when we try to study nosodes, in nosodes everything is out of proportion, and that out of proportionality usually concentrates on one feeling. And this same thing is there in Ambra as well. Now here, the most extreme form of feeling that we see, something that goes through the entire core of the remedy and affects the patient both at an emotional as well as physical level, something that manifests this morbidity that the Ambra feels, is embarrassment. Embarrassment runs through the core of entire Ambra Grisea. She is so embarrassed about herself and about the littlest things or the most trivial matters about herself that this embarrassment percolates through her entire being, and it leads to a feeling of self-disgust. This is the feeling of Ambra. She is so conscious about herself that she gets embarrassed about the slightest of things. And if you remember, the most famous symptom of Ambra is that she is unable to pass stool in the presence of others, even if they are not present in the same room as she is. Let's have a look at this symptom in the repertory. How do we search for it? Very easy. We do what is called as the command S. Now, when you press command S from the keyboard, a pop-up opens. This is the repertory search, and this is that one magic box which is going to give you access to all the repertories that are there in Zomeo and help you to get the results of all the repertories for any keywords that you type. Now we are looking for a particular rubric. So let us type enable, pass, stool. Three very easy keywords, and now we have three results. Let's look at the first one. Constipation, excitement, emotional aggravates, unable to pass stool in presence of strangers. Only 2 remedies, out of which Natrimure occupies 1 mark, whereas Ambra Grisea occupies 4. This is the level of embarrassment that the Ambra Grisea feels. Let us look at the next reference. The next reference we see is from Kent's repertory, where the rubric is constipation, unable to pass stool in presence of nurse, which means even a known person. Just one remedy, and that is Ambra Grisea, occupying 3 marks in Kent's repertory. So this is a representation of the embarrassment and the disgust that an Ambra Grisea feels towards herself. Now, why is this sense of embarrassment there, at least with respect to this rubric of unable to pass stool in presence of others? This is a symptom you will see in a few people who say that even if someone is present in the next room, I am unable to pass stool or I am unable to pass urine. An Ambra Grisea patient will not want anyone present even in the entire house when she has gone to the closet to pass stool. And the embarrassment that she feels is because of the sound that may come while she is passing stool, or because of the odor or the smell that she feels may waft out and may be smelled by people outside. And this leads to embarrassment and disgust at herself, even to pass the most natural elimination in the world. This is the level of embarrassment that she feels. Let's have a look at how this embarrassment manifests in Ambra Grisea and in what conditions is this remedy indicated. Now to do that, we do something that is very useful and extremely simple. That is called the remedy extract. To access remedy extract, click on remedy from the topmost menu bar and select the second option of remedy extract. Basically, this feature gives you a repertorial representation of a remedy. So you could call it the repertorial materia medica. Now in Homepath, we have refined this to a very different level. In this, you can actually look for rubrics containing a particular keyword for a particular remedy. Now, for example, let's look at what is there in the repertories for the word embarrassment for Ambra Grisea. Now to do that, the first thing that I will do is add my remedy. So when I click on add remedy, I get a list of all the remedies in the pop-up. I'm looking for Ambra. So I type AMBR, okay, AMB, and I have found my remedy Ambra. I check the box and add. My remedy Ambra has been added. Now I am particularly looking for the rubrics in the mind chapter. So in add repertories or chapters, I select mind from the complete repertory. Now if I want, I can select multiple chapters from different type of repertories also. But since I am specifically looking for embarrassment, which is found in the mind chapter, I am currently selecting only mind from the complete repertory. I select done, and now since I am looking for the rubrics to do with embarrassment, in the symptom keyword section I will add embarrassment. Now the moment I start typing, sometimes it becomes a little difficult to remember spellings. So even when I start typing the initial few letters, I get a lot of suggestions in a drop down. So I can select the word that I want. So I want embarrassment. Okay. I will select the word embarrassment, and now I want to see all the rubrics that contain the word embarrassment in the mind chapter of the complete repertory for the remedy Ambra. And I click extract. Now when I click this, I see that in the mind chapter of complete repertory, I have 4 rubrics for embarrassment that have the remedy Ambra. Let's have a look. I will be increasing the font size from the font line here. I just drag the indicator towards the right. This increases the font size and makes it easier for me and you to read. So now have a look. Ambra is there in complete mind embarrassment as a 3-mark remedy. It is also present in embarrassment aggravates ailments from. So physical and emotional complaints arising out of embarrassment are also seen in Ambra. Then we have embarrassment aggravates ailments from, mental and emotional consequences of. And the last, embarrassment strangers in presence of. Now this is a very important and very interesting rubric. And if you can see, there are only 4 remedies. Let's have a look. I just click on this rubric and now I see that there are just 4 remedies for this rubric. Embarrassment strangers in presence of. Ambra, Baraita carb, digitalis and tarantula. Now as we go ahead in the session, you will see that Ambra and Baraita carb run quite parallel to each other. But I will also tell you how we can differentiate between these 2 remedies easily. Now, the next symptom that I told you was disgust at the self. Okay. Now, this is a very different level of feeling towards the self. It is not just embarrassment that Ambra feels, because simple embarrassment is even felt by Staphysagria. But the cause of that embarrassment is different. There is no disgust at the self. Whereas in Ambra, she feels a repulsion towards her own self. Let's see how Ambra represents in our repertories for disgust. So now, in the remedy extract again, in place of the symptom keyword embarrassment, I will put in the word disgust. And now, let me see what rubrics I get for Ambra for this word disgust. I click extract and now I see that there are 5 rubrics. Have a look at them. They are very interesting because they give you an idea, a picture of what Ambra is. So in the main rubric disgust, we have Ambra as 2 marks. Then we have disgust, laughing of others aggravates. Now, why is this so prominent in Ambra? Laughing of others aggravates her because she is so conscious of herself that she feels that they are laughing at her, and that is why she gets aggravated, she gets agitated, and her complaints increase. The next rubric is disgust, odor of his own. So, like I told you, she's very conscious about the effect that she may be having on other people, and she always feels that she has a negative impact on others, even if she may actually not be doing it. Disgust, odor of his own stool. And last, disgust with oneself. So, can you understand how prominently the feelings of embarrassment and disgust run through the entire core and constitution of Ambra Grisea? Let's look at now what comes next. What comes after this embarrassment? So she says, there is something wrong with me, and to avoid my embarrassment, I should hide. This all stems from a feeling of oversensitivity. So, if in a certain situation, most other people may not react as strongly or may react in an appropriate manner, Ambra becomes very, very oversensitive about everything. Okay, now what is the level of her oversensitivity and where her oversensitivity is going? Let's have a look. We take the help of remedy extract again. It's the hero of our session today. Again, the remedy is Ambra, the chapter is mind. We just have to change the keyword. So in place of disgust, I will be putting in oversensitive. So I select oversensitive and I click extract. Again, if you see, there are 5 rubrics for oversensitive. Ambra is represented in the primary rubric sensitive, oversensitive. Now to get more specific, let us see all the sub-rubrics that it is featured in. The first is sensitive, oversensitive, impressions to all external. Again, an indicator of her extreme consciousness about her own self. Sensitive, oversensitive, noise sounds to aggravates. Sensitive to odors. And now the last point says it all about Ambra. Oversensitive, others say about her what. So, and in this, Ambra is represented in 4 marks. Let's have a look at this rubric. If I click on it and I see the entire rubric and its remedies, I can see that Ambra is the only 4 mark remedy that is present in this rubric. There are other remedies as well. Calcarea, there is lycopodium, there is palladium, all the usual suspects. There is thuja. Thuja is another remedy. It's also a nosode that runs parallel to Ambra when it comes to embarrassment and what people say. Because even in thuja, there is an intense consciousness about the self. But what is not there in Thuja is the self-disgust. Thuja cares about herself a lot. She feels that she is extremely delicate. And do you remember the symptom in Thuja? As if her body is made of glass. This represents the love that Thuja has for herself. Whereas in Ambra, there is no love for the self. There is a disgust of the self. And that is how you can differentiate Ambra from Thuja. Two nosodes which run very similar to each other but very easy to differentiate if you understand what is the core feeling that is running through the remedy. This oversensitivity leads her to brood a lot. She's a brooder, just like Natramure, just like Aurum metallicum. Ambra is a brooder. And because of this brooding, there are constant thoughts that keep coming into her head which refuse to go away. And the thoughts are so persistent that she doesn't even get sleep at night. When there are a lot of thoughts coming into your head and you lose sleep or you don't get sleep, the first remedy we usually think of is coffea. But the thoughts that come to coffea that prevent her from going to sleep are usually pleasant, joyous, exciting thoughts. For Ambra, they are all sad thoughts. They are, they are thoughts that erode her mind to the level where she feels that people are talking about her. She feels that she has made a huge mistake and that leads to guilt. So there is a difference between the sleeplessness due to persistent thoughts between Ambra and other remedies. Now let's have a look at a few rubrics. Like I said, that Ambra is so oversensitive that she tends to brood. Let's see how well Ambra is represented in the rubric brooding. So we'll do a command S. We will do a repertory search. I press command S from the keyboard and type brooding. Alright, I get 78 rubrics. Now, if I see the very first rubric that contains 197 remedies, the rubric from complete repertory, I see that Ambra features with 3 marks in the rubric of brooding. Again, a remedy that we will naturally not think of as one of the first remedies for brooding because we generally think of remedies like Ignatia, like Staphysagria, Natramure, Kali Kab, Naja. These are the remedies that we generally think of, China, when it comes to brooding. But this is also there in Ambra. Now, how do you differentiate? Let's take, for example, China. The brooding of China is very different from the brooding of Ambra. China usually has a lot of persecution complex. She feels or he feels that they are troubled or tormented a lot by other people. So there is a lot of love for the self, but there is a feeling, a delusion that they are being troubled or tormented or tortured by other people. And that is why they tend to brood. In case of Ignatia and Natramure, it is more of grief. The brooding stems from sad situations or sad feelings, especially going to the point of being an imaginary type of a brooding. They brood about things that have not happened. They imagine them happening and they brood. In the case of Aurum metallicum, for example, the brooding is more to do with guilt of not fulfilling responsibilities. In Ambra, the brooding is to do with guilt of being disgusting themselves. And this is how we can differentiate the brooding of Ambra from the brooding of Aurum, China, Natramure, Ignatia, or any other remedy. Now, because of this brooding, there are a lot of thoughts that come into her mind which are uncontrollable, which are persistent, which come one after the other. To understand how Ambra figures in the matter of thoughts, let's go back to the remedy extract. So I click on the window of remedy extract, which is already open in my software. So as you can see, I can open multiple features at the same time in different tabs and work on them, side by side, simultaneously, multitasking. Now again, I am looking for the word thoughts and how Ambra features in the rubrics of thoughts. So again, in the symptom keyword, I will type in thoughts and click on extract. Now, as you can see, there are 22 rubrics. Look at the second one. Absorbed, buried in thought, sadness indulges in. Now, you know what happens when this happens? When she is so buried in her own unpleasant and sad thoughts that she tends to become forgetful about the things that are actually important. And this is a symptom that you will see in many people. You will have patients coming to you and telling you that I overthink so much about one particular thing that I tend to forget to do things that are actually important. I forget to perform daily activities. I forget to perform chores. I forget what people have just said to me because her thoughts are actually elsewhere. Her thoughts are in sad situations. Now, Ambra figures very, very prominently in such rubrics. Like, for example, if I click on this rubric, absorbed, buried in thought, sadness indulges in. The only 4-mark remedy is Aurum metallicum. But if I see that Ambra is a 3-mark remedy in this rubric. Again, for this rubric, the first remedies that we generally think of are Aurum metallicum, China, pulsatilla, sorinum, but we never think of a remedy like Ambra. So now you know that Ambra is also a remedy that you can keep at the back of your mind for such rubrics. Moving down in the list, we have thoughts disagreeable and thoughts disagreeable, unpleasant subjects haunted by, both prominently featuring Ambra Grisea in Mark 3. Look at this rubric. Thoughts intrude and crowd around each other at night. The remedies, the only 4-mark remedy for this is pulsatilla, but we also see that Ambra Grisea, thuja, graphitis, crocus are other remedies that feature in this rubric. And if we move down in the list, look at this. Thoughts rush flow of sleeplessness with. And just moving a little bit down in the list, we see thoughts vanishing, unable to think. Again featuring Ambra. So what we are trying to say is that her sad thoughts are so prominent that all other thoughts disappear. And this becomes even more prominent in company. So if you see, Ambra is the only remedy for the rubric thoughts vanishing, unable to think, company in. There is a lot of aggravation from people in Ambra, and we will be seeing this ahead as well. Let's look meanwhile at the next symptom. Now, because of this oversensitivity, the thoughts, the brooding, the embarrassment, the self-disgust, what leads Ambra into is timidity. She becomes extremely timid. She is she is not a brave person. She is not someone who will take initiative. Now, if you see the rubric on timidity, you will see that there are a lot of other remedies that feature very, very prominently in this rubric. Let's type it right here in the remedy extract itself. We type in timidity and click extract. We have 7 rubrics. So the first is timidity. Then we have timidity company in, timidity bashful, timidity blushing. Very, very interesting. So much of timidity that she blushes. Let's have a look at this rubric. There are only 6 remedies where Ambra is the only 3-mark one. Okay, now moving back to the first rubric of timidity that contains more than 200 remedies. Okay, now the next question that naturally arises is, how do we differentiate between the timidity of Ambra and other remedies? If you see that timidity is a very broad word, okay, what we need to understand, something that I have been saying in the previous sessions and reiterating once again, is you need to know the cause behind a certain symptom. Why has this person become timid? Now, in the case of Ambra, the timidity is because of a very intense level of self-consciousness, embarrassment, and disgust. If you compare this to the timidity of other remedies, like for example, let us take a remedy like anacardium. Okay, anacardium is also a timid remedy, but the timidity of anacardium comes from a lot of domination. He or she has never been allowed to find an identity for himself or herself. All the decisions are already taken for them, and if they try to take decisions for themselves, they are shamed for it. They are made to feel embarrassed, they are made to feel bad about decisions that they take for themselves. And because there is such an extreme form of domination, they become very timid. On the other hand, of course, they can go to the other extreme of becoming very, very malicious and cruel as well. And this pendulum is seen in anacardium. If you look at the timidity of a remedy like alumina, there is an identity crisis in alumina also, but the level of domination, or the reason, that causation of domination that you see in anacardium is not there in alumina. And it is because alumina is still finding her feet or unable to find her feet that she becomes timid. Let's take a remedy like Baraita carb, which is in fact there in timidity bashful. Okay, along with Ambra, you will also see Baraita carb. Okay, so there is timidity bashful in both Ambra and Baraita. Like I said, Ambra and Baraita run parallel to each other. But how do you differentiate between the bashfulness of Ambra and Baraita? In Ambra, it is more to do with embarrassment. In Baraita, there is a genuine fear and a genuine incapacity of learning something new, of taking up a new responsibility. So there is an immense lack of confidence in Baraita Carb that leads to this timidity and bashfulness. Now, another remedy that has timidity, if you can see featuring in 4 marks, is coca. The timidity of Coca stems from the fact that they are people who do not like to be among people. They prefer being alone, they prefer being in isolation, and that is why when they come into the presence of people, they don't know what to do, and that is why they become timid. Okay, so this is how you can differentiate between coca and ambra and baryta carb. Another remedy that has timidity is calcarea carb. Okay, now in calcarea carb, the timidity is there because right from the time they are born, they are kept in a cocoon, in a shell. Okay, they are immensely protected, and because of that they are not allowed to gain experiences and learn on their own, and because of that they develop feelings of lack of confidence and insecurity, and this leads to the timidity of calcarea. Another remedy that features a lot in timidity is calcarea silicata. Now, calcarea silicata is a mixture of calcium and silica. If you look at Cilicia, because interestingly, timidity is seen in Cilicia also. And the timidity of Cilicia stems from the fact that there is a lot of fear of failure in Cilicia, because they have a lot of expectations that are put on them right from the beginning. And a similar condition is seen in Calcarea silicata as well. There are a lot of expectations from these people, and when they are unable to fulfill those expectations, their confidence takes a major dip and they become timid. Now the difference between Calcarea silicata and Cilicia is that Cilicia is expected to excel in a particular field, whereas the expectation from Calcarea silicata, the success of Calcarea silicata depends on money. So, when Calcarea silicata fails to bring in the money that is expected of him or her, that's when they lose their confidence and become timid. So, can you understand how the timidity of different remedies reflects in from where the timidity is coming from, or what is the actual cause? Okay, if you take another remedy like say let's take for example lycopodium. Lycopodium has a lot of self-doubt, which is why this timidity arises. Okay, whereas a remedy like graphitis, who is inherently a coward, who is inherently very fearful, this type of timidity is very different from the timidity that you see in other remedies, and especially ambra. So this is how you can differentiate the timidity of ambra and the timidity of other remedies. All right. Now, what happens as a result of this timidity in ambra? They are so embarrassed with themselves or disgusted by what they are or will do that they develop an intense aversion to being among people, to the extent of developing a fear of people. If they are made to talk or converse with people, they feel very, very uncomfortable. Now, and this is reflected in a very interesting rubric. Let's do a command S, and we have a rubric called conversation aggravates. Okay, now if you look at the first rubric from Kent, conversation aggravates. All right, look, ambra is present in 3 marks. They just don't like talking to people because they feel that people will notice how dirty they are or how disgusting they are, and then they will start talking about them. And that is why there is an intense aversion to company. Let's do a command S again, and let's type company aversion. Okay, 428 remedies in complete repertory, and Ambra Grisea is there in 4 marks. But this aversion to company does not stop there, friends. It goes to the level where they have an intense fear of going out, intense fear of being among people. Let's have a look. A command S from the keyboard again, and we type fear people. Okay, so the rubric is fear people of anthropophobia. Okay, 124 remedies, and Ambra Grisea as well as Baraita Kab are both there in 4 marks. Okay, so the aversion to company in Ambra goes to the level of developing a fear of people. If we look at the rubric of Kent, fear people of, here as well we see the remedy Ambra Grisea. Okay, so this is the level of discomfort they feel when they are in company. That is why when they talk, they tend to talk hurriedly because they want the conversation to get over, or they tend to jump from one topic to another to avoid attention to any one topic or to themselves, or they keep asking questions without waiting for an answer. Why? Because they want to avoid answering questions themselves. This is there in a very interesting rubric. Let's do a command S, and I am going to type asks many questions. Isn't this an interesting rubric? I always love looking at unusual rubrics like this because it helps me to learn about the different remedies and what all I can learn from these rubrics. So we have just 2 rubrics for asks many questions. The first rubric has 8 remedies, among which Ambra Grisea is the one that features in Mark 2. Apart from that, we also have another remedy, cannabis indica. It's a drug remedy. Cannabis indica is very, very loquacious, but and she also asks a lot of questions. But this particular quality of cannabis of asking many questions comes from a base curiosity that she has. But in Ambra, it is something like covering up, you know. She's just asking too many questions because she doesn't want to answer them herself. Okay, and this asking many questions, if you see, is there in aurum metallicum also, because aurum metallicum is an over conscientious person who wants the answer to everything, and that is why she asks so many questions. So can you see how we can differentiate between the same rubric in 3 different remedies? And then you have the rubric asks questions many, answer does not wait for. And here there are only 2 remedies, and the first one, which is there in grade 3, is Ambra. So can you understand how interesting it is to get to know the personality of Ambra through rubrics? Because from now we can form a total picture of what Ambra actually is. There is a lot of covering up. So again, Ambra is a remedy that prominently features in the miasm of psychosis. So you will see sleeplessness, you will see brooding, you will see leukorrhea, you will see menstrual issues in Ambra Grisea. A lot of things to do with hiding. Okay, for example, you will see herpes. Okay, if you get a patient of herpes or a patient of acne, and she says, look at this, doctor, see how it looks, it's so embarrassing, it's so disgusting. Okay, even if there is a rash on a part of the body that is covered by her clothes, and Ambra will say, doctor, it's disgusting. The word disgusting should make you think of Ambra very, very uh, quickly and prominently. Okay, they have a fear that if they talk or appear in company, people will realize how dirty and disgusting they are, and they will abandon them. So there is a fear of being abandoned or forsaken by the same people whose company she avoids. Okay, that is because she feels that they will realize how dirty she is, and this same feeling is seen in lac caninum. Okay, lac caninum is also derived from an animal, but lac caninum is a sarcode, whereas Ambra is a nosode. How do you differentiate this feeling that they have, this insecurity that they are dirty or horrible? Ambra also feels she is dirty. Lac caninum also feels she is dirty. But in Ambra, the feeling of being dirty and disgusting is an intrinsic feeling that usually stems from a physical insecurity. Whereas in lac caninum, the feeling of being dirty or disgusting stems from an emotional cause, where lac caninum is like a pendulum. She's also like a pendulum, so she can react very, very horribly in certain situations, and this makes her feel dirty or disgusted about herself. If you understand, and if you have, from this session that we are taking, there is a level of hysteria in Ambra Grisea also. Okay, like we look at the rubric of hysteria. Okay, so command S, we see hysteria from the complete repertory, and we see that the remedy Ambra Grisea is also there, along with other remedies like anacardium, which is another hysterical remedy, asafoetida, belladonna. We see cannabis indica, cannabis sativa, chamomilla, simicifuga. The hysteria of simicifuga is seen mostly during menses. Otherwise, she is extremely mild. Okay, we see a hysterical tendency in cocculus, in coffea. Moving down in the list, we also see that this same hysterical tendency is there in lacan also. So Ambra also has this hysterical tendency, which you can see in the symptoms that we have seen, that she is so overconscious of herself. It borders along the line of hysteria, especially seen at the level of the stool. Yes, now this is a very prominent feature in Ambra. She is absolutely aggravated by music. The slightest music that will play, whether it is a happy song or a sad song, aggravates Ambra to an ultimate degree. It's as if music is like a physical being that has taken hold of her. Okay, let's see how Ambra features in an extract of the word music. Going back to the remedy extract, okay, the word that we are looking for is music. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, instead of taking just the mind chapter, I'd like to take all the chapters from the complete repertory and see if music affects Ambra at any physical level as well. Okay, so now if I want to select all the chapters from complete repertory, I will just check this box. against the word complete, and I can now see that all the chapters of complete repertory have been selected. I click done, and in the symptom keyword, I put in the word music. Alright, and I click extract. And look, in just 1 second, the software has searched for the word music among all chapters of complete repertory and given us 32 references. So if you see, look, fear from music, only 15 remedies with Ambra Grisea as one of them. We then have music aggravates, jazz music aggravates, popular music aggravates, and even on the other side of the scale, we have music ameliorates, but Ambra is seen featuring only in Mark 1. Look, aversion to music, sadness from music, sadness from lively music, head internal music aggravates. So now we go to the physicals and see how Ambra is so affected by music. Heat in the head from music. Ears music aggravates. Pain in the ears from music. Asthma from music. The only remedy in asthma from music or asthma music aggravates is Ambra Grisea. Very interesting, isn't it? Cough music aggravates. The only 4-mark remedy is Ambra Grisea. Palpitations from listening to music. People usually feel good listening to music, but they get palpitations. Piano playing aggravates. So, can you understand what an important role music plays in the life of an Ambra? They are very, very happy without music in their life. And the slightest music, even the most soothing music like a piano, will aggravate them. So this was the core of Ambra. Let's do a quick recap. The core of Ambra comes from a sense of morbidity of the self that reflects and manifests as disgust and embarrassment because of an intrinsic oversensitivity at the mental and physical level both. And this leads to timidity. This leads to a fear of people, an aversion to company, and a tendency to avoid any type of conversation. And of course, the fact that there is a lot of aggravation from music. Now let us move on to the physical symptoms of Ambra, something that Ambra is already known for. Okay, premature senility. Okay, when a young person starts looking old, it's called premature senility. Let's have a look at that rubric. Okay, it's an interesting rubric, and this is where your observation comes into play, because when a young person, a 24-year-old woman or a 30-year-old woman, starts looking like a 55-year-old or a 60-year-old woman, this is a very, very prominent feature and characteristic that you must never ignore when you are looking for a constitutional. And there is an interesting rubric for this. We do a command S, and all you type is premature space old. That's it. And there are 14 rubrics. Look at the first one. Complete generalities, old age, premature. Now there are 74 rubrics in this. As opposed to if you look at Kent, there are only 7 remedies. If you click on it, Ambra Grisea features in Mark 2. Right next to Ambra is its best friend Baraita carb. You also have Kali carb, you have lycopodium, and the only 3-mark remedy is selenium. So when you have a patient who looks prematurely old, this is the rubric that you take, because this rubric is going to help you to understand and arrive at the perfect simillimum for your patient. This is where observation plays a very, very important role. Ambra also features in premature graying of hair, again something that is seen in Lycopodium and Selenium. So you usually think of Lycopodium and Selenium for premature graying of hair. Another prominent remedy for early graying is phosphoric acid, but in phosphoric acid there is usually an element of grief after which this starts. Okay, but early graying of hair is also seen in Ambra. Then you have constipation, something that we already discussed at the beginning of the session, that the presence of others, even the nurse, is unbearable during stool. And you know what is the perversion in Ambra? They are very aggravated, they are unable to pass stool in presence of others, but when they come into in presence of people, they get so nervous that they get the desire to pass stool. It is a kind of an anticipation, you can say, something that you see in argentum nitricum, that arises from anxiety, and because of which argentum has to go to the washroom or the restroom again and again. But in case of argentum, it is more of a diarrhea that they have, an anticipatory diarrhea. In Ambra, the anticipation leads to an ineffectual desire to pass stool. So when they are in the presence of people, they become so nervous that they feel like passing stool, but they cannot. Metrorrhagia, discharge of blood between periods at every little accident. Now this is a prominent symptom that you will see in a lot of materia medica books. Like for example, let's go back to the window of remedy, where the reference book of materia medica of nosodes is already open. Let's look at another book. Let's have a look at Borix materia medica. Okay, and let's look at the feature of female. Okay, so can you see here, discharge of blood between periods at every little incident. Okay, looking at another book, let's have a look at keynotes with nosodes. If you look here, have a look at this one symptom, discharge of blood between periods at every little accident, a long walk, after every hard stool. So after constipation, she gets metrorrhagia. Okay, now this is a rubric that we have. Let's have a look at that rubric. We do a command S and type metrorrhagia and stool. Okay, so you have 32 rubrics that match the keywords metrorrhagia and stool. We will look at this rubric that says metrorrhagia, hard stool from passing. This is from Kent's repertory. There are only two remedies for this, Ambra Grisea and Lycopodium, where Ambra is given in grade 3. Remember these rubrics, friends, because they are going to help you in prescribing the correct remedy for your patient. Leukorrhea. Leukorrhea, thick, slimy, preceded by shooting pains in the vagina, running of white bluish matter from the vagina. Leukorrhea is more abundant at night. Cough. Now, Ambra has a spasmodic kind of cough. Okay. Now, this spasmodic cough is seen with frequent eructations of gas. So, it is more like a gastric cough. Okay, because of indigestion. A very, very famous symptom of Ambra is asthma from caution. Okay, but what very few people know is that the spasmodic cough that is seen in Ambra is worse in presence of people. So if you look at a rubric, we have a rubric called cough company in, very unusual rubric. Okay, we have 8 references for this. Look at the reference for Kent, cough company, only 2 remedies, Ambra and Baraitaka, where Ambra features in 2 marks. On the other hand, if you see the rubric from complete, there are 10 remedies where Ambra is the only 4-mark remedy. The other remedies that feature are arsenic, Baraitaka and phosphorus in 3 marks. And then you have an interesting rubric called asthma of elderly. Now, translating this as a rubric, if we do a command S, we will type asthma old people. Okay, and look at the rubric of Nair. Okay, so we'll take an absolute pioneer book. It's a Puritan repertory. So, absolutely pure symptoms, asthma in old people. 14 remedies, Ambra features in number 3. Now, when it comes to respiratory symptoms, you will see that arsenic features very, very prominently. Arsenic and carboveg feature very, very prominently with Ambra Grisea, because here we are talking about old people or elderly. And so these 2 remedies run together in any complaints of elderly. So these 2 remedies run together, and these are the 2 remedies that we usually think of when we think of respiratory complaints in old people, arsenic and carboveg. But now you have a third remedy to remember, and that is Ambra Grisea. Okay, insomnia. Okay, Ambra is a very, very good remedy for sleeplessness. Cannot sleep from worry, must get up. Ambra has a lot of anxious dreams, whereas Coffea has a lot of happy dreams. There is an insomnia from business embarrassments or business failure. This is very, very prominent in Ambra. And if you look at the rubric, let's do a command S. Sleeplessness, business. So look, sleeplessness, cares, worries from business off. 12 remedies. Ambra Grisea is present in grade 3. Just move down in the list. Sleeplessness, embarrassment in business after. A person who has always been good at business suddenly makes a mistake and fails. That leads to embarrassment. Okay, so business failure is different and business embarrassment is different. In business embarrassment, you have only 5 remedies, and Ambra features in grade 3. Now, I'd like to show you a very interesting case from one of our journals, archived journals that are there in the software. Now, to have a look at the cases, see here it becomes very interesting. According to me, it's not just enough to know the materia medica of a remedy. You must understand how you can practically apply the remedy in people. Okay? Now, this of course you will learn through experience, through your own clinical practice. But if you are able to read, certain cases that have prominently featured certain remedies, it is not easy to forget the remedies after you see them in a case. And that is why, continuously reading journals is very, very important, because it broadens your horizons. It makes you go beyond your theoretical knowledge and makes you go into practical application. Okay, so if I want to read the cases that are there for a particular remedy, let me go back to this list of remedy, and here where reference book is written, click on the arrow present next to reference book and click on remedy cases. Now, there are a few cases given for Ambra. Next to the word topics, click on the arrow, and I would like to show you the case of the timid mechanic. Now, this is a case featured in the National Journal of Homeopathy in the year 1994. This case was given by Dr. Parinaz Humranwala. Let's read. Mr. MS, 31 years of age, a mechanic by profession, came to the clinic with the following complaints. So basically, since 2 years, this patient has been suffering from cough. Okay, so there is a wheezing with expectoration, which is white and sticky, burning sensation, a sensation of falling on rising from the bed. Okay, apart from that, he also has vertigo since 1 year. Okay, now the modalities are, his complaints are always aggravated at night by lying down, during sleep, and rising from the bed. Alright. Personal history: lean and tall, weighs just 42 kgs. Poor appetite with an aversion to sweets. He is a chronic smoker since the last 10 years, and he also suffers from sleeplessness, from different thoughts related to work. Thermally, he is a hot patient. Now, if you look at his life space, the patient stays with his mother, wife, 2 sisters, a younger brother, and his 2 children. He studied up to 8th grade and began working as a helper in a garage as his family had financial troubles. He is very calm, hardworking, preoccupied all the time with his work, prefers being alone, and dislikes talking and being talked to. His anxiety is always pertaining to work and is never shared with the family. He likes being punctual, hates quarrels, and is anxious about his health since he is the only earning member of the family. He hates music and would switch off the radio as soon as he entered his home. Now, this paragraph is extremely interesting. When I called him, so this case was actually taken by an intern. Okay, so when he actually stepped into the cabin to meet the doctor, he gave a quick glance at the crowded room because there were a lot of students and just sat there looking at the floor. He sat on the examination stool very carefully, not allowing his clothes to touch the girls standing around. As I began asking about his day-to-day activity, his shyness increased. Later he said that if I had known that there were so many people in the room, I would not have entered inside. So please give me the remedy so that I can leave. His timidity made me wonder whether he would ever return to us again. Now just this one paragraph should make you understand that the remedy has to be Ambra, plus the added symptom of music aversion and company aggravation. Okay, the remedy that was finally selected was Ambra Grisea. Now, in this case, the timidity, the preoccupied mind, anxiety about the work, and his sleeplessness. So, sleeplessness with relation to his work or business, again pointing to Ambra. Initially, so if you see, his cough became worse, whereas the appetite became better, and later the cough and the appetite both improved, and there was no vertigo as well. So can you understand how practically you can get an Ambra patient? If you see, when the case was taken, there was no indication of timidity, there was no indication of shyness, this extreme form of shyness. This was observed by the doctor when the patient was put in an uncomfortable situation. So here is where observation plays a very, very important role, because it helps you to get a bit closer to the simillimum. So this was the session on Ambra Grisea. I hope that you have really enjoyed this and you have a lot of takeaway with relation to how Ambra can be used as a constitutional in daily practice. Take care. Thank you.